I am seriously racing against an 8% battery. I have to talk about this. It's January 1st. Spare Me Your Mercy is a 2024 show created by someone who created another show I quite like from years ago called Triage. I have reviewed it on my channel before. She's quite talented, and the crew that has the people working on it is also from I Feel You Linger in the Air, To Start With Love, Loss of Attraction, which is another show I really liked, and so many banger Thai shows that are pretty good from the last few years. I think I might have fumbled a bag and called out early the best show of 2024 when I should have talked about Spare Me Your Mercy. I've classified things I want to discuss about Spare Me Your Mercy into 3 buckets. It's quick, but I want it to be pretty efficient, okay? Number 1, the stylistic choices, which includes the music, the lighting, the scene composition, which really touches on the cinematography. I guess it's an arc of the cinematography overall. The character development is another side of this, and the deepening of that, the way the character's motivation and actions are laid out, which pretty much strengthens the understanding of like the theme overall. And finally, I want to explore these like meaningful themes that I just talked about. This is where the creators laid out deeply flawed human themes that say larger things about individuals, but also how we process and engage with hard stuff like grief, shame, body sovereignty, and like how societally look at and perceive at these things. One of my favorite things about Spare Me Your Mercy is the stylistic choices that would be overlooked in other shows. Thai shows generally do a pretty good job of stylistically marking the moment of the show. Typically in Thai BLs, there is a misalignment in an unintentional insertion of music over whatever, right? It can feel quite disjointed. In this case, the music and the background sounds elevate the moment and the emotion. The music is not a signal that we should suddenly care about the character's impact and what they're going through. The music is sort of like push. You're already feeling the emotions and what the characters are feeling. Also, sometimes there's no music except like nature sound, which kind of captures the geographical location of where they're at. The show was filmed in Chiang Mai, I believe. Bleeds into the cinematography. The cinematography feels really embedded within the show's storyline. There's these sudden stunning shots that seem to be really, really low-key, and I think this is like a strength of the crew that worked on this show. It is not showy, as in like, hey, look at this beautiful shot, and then like you kind of forget the rest of it. It feels incredibly embedded, but it's still like breathtaking. Moments like when the syringe is taken out, when Tu, for instance, walks through the field in the village where Dr. Khan is performing euthanasia on real time and then also is assessing the other villagers. There's lightness and heaviness at the same time, and being able to kind of juxtapose both is like quite a talent as a creator. Also use lighting to communicate scene heaviness. I think episode 7 is the one episode where I can recall this very vividly. After Boss was, spoiler alert, was killed because he requested to die. There's darkness. Camera angles are used to manipulate different emotions like powerlessness, fear, etc. Again, there's this scene in episode 7 where Pyon sees that Boss has passed and the shot is on her. It's not even, the focus is not even on Boss or the doctors that are assisting him. Color of the scene is fluorescent red, communicating sort of like an emergency, but also this out of control urgency that she's feeling in the moment, or she may be feeling in the moment. Simple cinematography also illustrates this like layer or texture of Chiang Mai with the drives to the hospital. Like, it's very simple moments. Camping by the creek, establishing shots of the city, which this city is known to be this like lush green part of northern Thailand. Pyon, the doctor, to the director, the nurses, the people that have asked to die, nobody's unflawed in the show or puritanical. Nobody is trying to present a very rigid worldview, and if they are pushed against. Characters are driven by very human motivations and elements of love, survival, desire, dignity, peace, honor, and acceptance, which actually deepens the character's motivations and actions. Boss is not well, for instance. A lot of his fear of potential disability, which did come true eventually, did like deepen him as a character, becoming helpless like he saw his dad. His motivator was like this idealizing of this doctor and taking the wrong lesson from Dr. Khan's life, and eventually asking Dr. Khan to take his life. Dr. Khan also saw suffering and pain from his mom and dad when she was sick, and committed to care for others in a way that he didn't see, which ended up risking his life in a real way by assisting other people to basically die. 2 feels like deep regret for not being able to be with his mom at the end of her life, and projects a lot of his regrets, grief on Dr. Khan and other people around him, and sees the world in this very binary and rigid way where it's good or bad until Dr. Khan walks into his life. It would have been easy for 2 to completely turn around and choose Dr. Khan or not turn him in at the end of the show, but the hard stuff is forgiving and still choosing to stick with his moral compass is something that is really hard to do as a creator, especially when you're trying to give a satisfying and meaningful ending to your audiences. And finally, I think my utmost favorite part of Spare Me Your Mercy was the themes that were explored in the show, and it gave the show the depth that it wanted to leave with. It gave an impression that felt really important, I think. There's this reduction of BL, how it's incapable of expressing and communicating really heavy themes about humanness and living, kind of like saying, well, it's a BL, it's not supposed to be deep. I think any art has the capability to communicate that, and I feel like Spare Me Your Mercy was almost like a antidote against that. Meaningfully tightly written dialogue lets us get a glimpse of what is important to these characters. Dialogue is really hard to do, even though it seems easy. Euthanasia is the method, but it is in Spare Me Your Mercy in all the ways. It's also a colloquial term for mercy killing, which is an exploration of mercy in all the different realms that the characters are experiencing, peace or ease. It's about body sovereignty, it's about shame, it's about regret, it's about grief. It's also about families of the folks that have been euthanized project all their regrets and shame and unmended relationships on one man who is trying to do his best. At some point, Dr. Khan makes the thesis of the show. He says this at this point: it's not about you, it's about the people that are suffering and their wishes at the end of their life and their dignity and their honor and the sovereignty. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I love the show. I love that the show wrestled with the law of life and the right thing to do, blurred lines, and the fact that there's no one answer to things through to someone whose values are foundationally misaligned from Dr. Khan. And of course, it's also about caretakers. Dr. Khan is someone who grew up with a father who took care of a very sick mother who was dealing with an incredible amount of pain. And you see him extending that grace and goodwill to the families as much as to the people who are choosing to give basically their life away. Remember that tweet that was like, are there any good BLs in Thailand? Like, y'all are funny.